Hello and welcome back to the Association Podcast. Today we're joined by Tim Hopkins, CAE and Senior Consultant at McKinley Advisors.
I think part of my overall journey, it's been a process of trying to see how I can affect change in a more impactful way. And I feel like where I'm at now has been like this series of trying to get to a different place of decision making of, okay, what has more authority to make that decision? And so we've been helping organizations and their boards of directors and CEOs and executive directors shape the future, to map out 3-5 years or even some 1 year of what they want to focus on. What are their key objectives? What are the key results? And specifically the outcomes they want to achieve. And then sometimes helping build those action plans to achieve those strategies. I think that's been through your research to figure out what those wants, needs, pains, potential gains may be, and then putting out some version of a minimum viable product to your audiences, not just trying to wait till you have a perfect thing, putting this out there in the world to say, this is safe to try, this is a value, and then finding out in that there's the, the lean methodology, build, measure, learn loop. A big fan of that. I've been teaching that to a lot of clients with some success of like trying to turn association minds into more product manager or product development mindsets. And that could apply to so much of the association space, providing value. So that's another really big area that, especially lately, that's been so exciting and of value to a lot of association folks. So I kept raising my hand to say, hey, I'll help work with our leaders, our members to help work on this issue. And we got to do a lot of really important work in that space. And a lot of things I've been building on and helping other organizations now kind of do across other industries, things like launching a diversity executive leadership program, just like ASA's help. We did one of those about 6 years ago at the fire chiefs, largely based on ASAEs. I called up Mary Lou Murata, who was their program manager, and just picked her brain like any of us would do, right? I'm like, hey, I need to think creatively on, in the tech space communities, I'm just going to call Ben, it's that kind of thing. I love that about our industry too. It's like, hey, yeah, I'll pick up the phone and I'm just going to give you as much knowledge as possible so you can iterate from that idea and try to make it your own for whatever you're doing. So over the last year, I've been helping lead some of the discussions with boards about, where they are on the diversity, equity, inclusion front, what they kind of the current state, future state, where do you want to be? A lot of it's been reflective from last June and after the George Floyd murder. That was a big motivator for a lot of organizations. And my whole thing has been, like when from the technology side, it's not just trying to have people throw initiatives at the issue. It's to really be strategic about it. And I know this is something you all talk about as well. It's let's pause for a second, reflect, acknowledge what's taking place, but also, truly map out what the future should look like, where you want to end up, and build a clear strategy and action plan to get to that place. And so it converges on so many things I'm passionate about. And so I started out the diversity, equity, inclusion practitioner social hours after ASA annual last year with a colleague who was a former DEI head at the Consumer Technology Association. And that was one of the topics that shows up in variations. We crowdsource our topics each month, and that the sort of where do we begin was one of our first sessions. And we had this conversation about being honest about sort of how you got to where you are, taking an inventory of not only where you are, but what your organization looks like, what it stands for, what its values are, and doing that in a space where people can be vulnerable, right? I think that's one of the things that we've done is had these kickoff conversations with organizations and say, look, we're gonna break this down and ask you specific things about where you are on your journey. What's your organization's origin story, if you will, and then move that into who you are and what you bring to the table as a board member, as a volunteer leader, as whatever your role is, how that might affect and help shape the direction you head. And I think that part of it makes it a little more approachable to say, look, we want to have a safe space. We understand and we provide some language. Like if you step on something, you say something that maybe offends someone, we help provide you some language that helps, like in that conversation, go, oh, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't know that was a sensitive thing. And it's I think we've had some really good discussions and been able to really peel back some layers with organizations. But to your question, Joe, it's like organizations need to show up and be serious about it, and bring some vulnerability to the table. And I think a lot of times in these board meetings, there's a lot of people of great high statures, and pride's a very important thing. And you need to show up with this and sort of suspend that a little bit, have a little humility, since it's a topic that not many people are experts in.